So here with me, we have Andres Robledo. You are in Medellin, Colombia, right?
That's right.
And so Andres is a founder of a very interesting company called Nomad. And so the company is participating in X-Culture for the first time this semester. So to be honest, I still have very limited information about the company other than the official description that we have in the challenge instructions. So maybe let's start with the introduction of the company. So tell us what you do, maybe a little bit about the history of the company, a little bit about the services you offer. So tell us about Nomad.
Okay. So I started Nomad in 2018. I had that was 2 months before graduating from international business at EAFIT University. Um, I had always been very passionate about traveling, and especially after a big trip I made to New Zealand in 2013, I was super inspired on the amount of things that I could do in Colombia and that I had never done before. I was doing a bunch of things in the other side of the world that I had never tried in my own country. So that really changed my perspective on the things I wanted to do. So basically mixed with the knowledge that I got in university about international business and the trips I had made around, I decided to start the company. I started, as I sent you on a brief, with two other partners that later decided to focus on other things. So now I am by myself. I have support of one teammate, especially on communications, and the rest of our collaborators that work depending on the demand, right? Uh, Nomad is a company that provides and strives to provide unforgettable and very authentic experiences in Medellin right now and also its surroundings, with the vision to expand to the whole country of Colombia. We focus on culture and nature, and in both, we strongly strive to have a positive impact on communities in environmental issues as leaving no trace, and in communities as bringing knowledge, experience, and of course, economic support to these communities.
So in your challenge, you talk a lot about this La Nomada program. What exactly is that? I see there are pictures of some like a RV, a recreational vehicle, like a van. So what is that? So what kind of, because it doesn't look like a regular boring hotel. It seems something like very, very different. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so this one is a camper van. I'm working now. This one is a van that has all the amenities inside to live and to travel. So you'll find there a comfortable bed, kitchen, bathroom, shower, and it comes with all that. The model is that anyone can rent it per minimum 2 days, up to even months, of course, negotiating the terms. And there's a list of properties and places that I recommend, right? There's a list of host families. Those are mainly families that work in farms. That will be the hosts. So basically they provide a space for you to park and get access to showers and toilets.
So it's basically a full immersion experience, like experience Colombia, not from a window of your Hilton hotel, but real full immersion with the local host families and travel on your own terms, not on some tour bus, right?
Yeah, exactly. The idea is that you have a really complete experience, that you do things at your own pace, spend the amount of time that you want in each place, and yeah, have a first approach, right? More direct with people, and get access to many places that are normally not very well advertised and that people don't hear about it much.
Right, right. Well, once this whole coronavirus craze is over, I may actually see if I can become your client, because I always wanted to do something like that, and it sounds like a very good experience.
For
Uh, t-
sure.
Tell us about the geography of your business. So I know that you offer tours in Colombia, but your clients can come from anywhere. Who are your clients? Can you describe them?
Yeah, so right now I work mainly with clients from other countries. My amount of, uh, like, let's say the percentage of clients are around 90% people from other countries besides Colombia, and only a 10% from Colombians, right?
Mhm.
Out of the total of the amount of visitors or like tourists from other countries, around 68% are coming from the US. So the
Ah,
US is a
interesting.
big, big market for me.
That's actually, I've been to Colombia several times, to Medellin, in fact, and I was very surprised to see many Americans there. So somehow, when you hear about Colombia on the news, you wouldn't think that it's the main destination, but somehow Medellin, both EFIT, there were some professors there with American ties, many students from the United States, I was surprised, and many tourists. So it seems, and obviously I can see why they're coming there. It's a perfect weather, nature, jungle, green, summer. I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, why not? So, but yeah. And then, so you said about 68 to third come from the United States. And what other countries do you have clients from?
Then are mainly from Europe, mainly France and Germany. But this other part of the like the percentage is quite distributed. So there's not one country that dominates a big percentage, such as the US does. So it's very distributed among European countries.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. In terms of competition, so who would you consider your competition? I assume, the type of tours you offer or the type of experiences you offer, those are probably not your regular tourist agencies, but still, are there any other companies that do exactly what you do, or who is basically your competition in your own perspective?
Yeah, so I consider competition a set of companies based in Medellin that offer a variety of experiences. I have already like a list that I could share with you in a document so it's more clear. But basically, are companies based in Medellin that try to as well provide a very authentic experience, so they don't focus too much on the destinations that are already super popular, but try to go to places that have not been visited much and can offer a really like real experience to people.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. And going back to the geography question, so are there any countries that you're particularly interested in growing business in or getting more customers from? Or maybe are there any countries that you would not necessarily like to see more tourists from, buying your packages?
Well, in terms of like new countries, I would love to have more people or like focus on Latin American countries, as they are closer, and in theory they would be uh, like the decision to come to Colombia wouldn't be as big as a European country.
Right.
As well, so I'm talking specifically about um, big country I would love to get into is Mexico, and
Hmm.
another one is Peru. Those are big, big markets in terms of tourism in America, and they both receive people that are many times doing like a big trip around South America or Central America or North America. But the thing is that they get to a place such as Mexico and Peru, and then they are planning or already have planned to go to Colombia, for example. So I would love to have alliances and more impact on these two specific markets.
And we do have students in X-Culture, in fact, quite a few universities from Mexico, 5, 6 in a given semester, but Peru as well. But we also have a lot of universities from Brazil, We actually had a few from Venezuela this semester, no, but last semester we had 2 universities from Venezuela. So all of those are basically your immediate neighbors or one neighbor over. So we'll see what comes. Oh, Chile. Well, Chile is kind of a little on the other side of the mountains, but still. So we'll see. Plus, we have a lot of universities in the Caribbean region. So Grenada, Barbados, Trinidad. So we'll see.
Great.
Maybe they'll come up with some interesting ideas there. So, but I assume you are welcoming, if students find out that, let's say, I don't know, there is a lot of interest in going to Colombia, let's say, I don't know, from South Korea or Japan, you don't have anything against it. I mean, if the clients want to come, why not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
Colombia, in my impression, seems to be a very welcoming country when it comes to internationals. At least I didn't feel like in some countries you can always feel that you are a foreigner. So in Colombia, somehow nobody was giving me strange looks. Everybody was welcoming. So are there any, I don't know, countries, tourists from which may not feel safe in Colombia, or Colombians are perfectly fine with? So I don't know, what's your take on that?
Well, no, I think like the experience of having so many people already visiting and dealing with them is the same comment as you do, is that they feel very welcome.
Yeah.
Right now, there's not a big issue with any particular country in terms of visitors, like tourists. There's not a big issue on regarding any of them, and it's basically that same feeling that in Nomad I am trying to like uh, expand, or I don't know, like magnify that feeling that people are welcoming, especially related to the project of La Nómada, is that take advantage of that, right? If people are welcoming, try to have a more direct experience with them.
Exactly. Plus, again, Colombia is so diverse. You have mountains, you have uh, jungle, you have, so many differences, natural differences, geographic differences, ethnic differences. So it seems like there is so much to do in Colombia. On my last visit, I even got a book, History of Colombia, started reading it a little bit. So it actually seems like it's almost like a mix of cultures. I mean, yes, Colombians think of themselves as Colombians, but you have so many influences there. So it's almost like it's a conglomeration. And apparently it was even bigger than what it is now, right? So it was like almost like a little empire, I guess. So lots of things to do. So it's not just one place.
Yeah, it's super diverse, and many people talk about like there's a lot of Colombias inside Colombia,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Every region is super diverse and different. That makes it really interesting for tourism.
Yeah. Okay, well, a lot of questions about your marketing. So how do
Okay.
you promote your services now? How do you advertise? What channels do you use? Tell us more about how you make yourself known and visible to potential customers.
Okay. So I'll tell you like in order of the most important, or at least the one that is bringing more sales to me to the less. Okay. The first one right now is that I offer my experiences through the platform of Airbnb experiences. Okay, that is bringing me at least almost 70% of my total sales. After that, I do
How does
also
it
have,
work? Can you explain that? Because I'm not familiar with this. So Airbnb has also a separate sort of like a service for experiences, not just houses.
yeah, exactly. So once you are in the platform of Airbnb, you can choose to search for accommodation, but also experiences.
Oh, that's
Uh,
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and many times, well, once you have booked, for example, a night in Medellin, then you'll receive an email of a recommendation of experiences. So basically, it's a simple model of like an online travel agency.
And then anything else you said? So most of your advertisement is Airbnb. Do you do any, I don't know, Facebook, Google, any of those?
Okay. So after that, I also have a big, like after Airbnb, I also promote myself in TripAdvisor experiences.
Uh-huh.
Works the same. And after that, I do advertise mostly on Instagram. So in the account of Nomad, I promote. I do a lot of advertising inside Instagram.
Got it.
Not much Facebook, only Instagram, basically.
Okay. By the way, I see there is a question from Victoria Mendes about, do you plan to expand your business into different countries in Latin America and or South America? And so the answer is yes. So I'm not sure, Victoria, what country you're in, but if you think you can help with that, so obviously here we are. So that's
Yeah,
exactly what I was talking about. Um,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, definitely long-term goals for Nomad as a tourism company is to expand definitely in South America, and already like with a list of countries that I would like to expand first, such as Ecuador and Peru. Like
Mhm.
those two would be the first one that I would love to expand.
Yeah, very nice. Are you at liberty to disclose your advertisement budget? And again, you don't have to give the exact numbers, but kind of curious how those things, like for example, with Airbnb, do they charge for it, or do they get like a percentage of sales, or do you have to pay in advance? How does it work?
They get percentage of sales. So there's no actual investment
Uh-huh.
of
Oh, really?
Nomad on them, right? They only charge once they have sold something. In terms of marketing, I plan for 20, like for this year, around 10% of my total sales that goes to marketing,
Right, right.
right?
Makes sense. Okay. In terms of expanding into new markets, so I assume your main interest would be to find ways to advertise or reach customers in other countries, but you probably are not looking to establish any subsidiaries or sales representatives. But would you be open to the idea of maybe some sort of partnerships or alliances with the tourist agencies in different countries? Or have you thought about some sort of, like presence in the market that is a little bit more than just placing ads, like maybe having a local sales representative, or maybe, I don't know, working with some governmental agencies? Have you thought about that? Is that something, like if students brought some interesting ideas around that, would you consider them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like as a first step to expand internationally, I would love to have alliances with mainly travel agencies. I think that would be the first step in order to expand. After that, a second step would be to have, in fact, a local representative that knows exactly values and mission of Nomad and can transmit that well to customers outside the country. But first, travel
Yeah.
agencies in other countries.
In the past, again, we will see how things go this time, but in the past, we had situations where some students believed in the mission of the company so much, or were just simply so good at selling, that they would literally go and bring contracts and say, I talked to this distributor or retailer, or in your case, it could be, I don't know, potential customers or travel agencies. And so we've had cases in the past when the company said, hey, you're so good at this, would you like to be my representative in that market? And, some sort of a commission based or something like that. So I'm not sure how it's going to work with your company, but I'm thinking, since the product is so appealing to the students, I mean, everybody loves to travel, especially if it's kind of some special type of travel. So I don't know, I encourage the students to try and see what happens when you talk to your friends or maybe when you talk to some local travel agencies, what they think about Nomad. And if you do it well, maybe it will become some sort of like a little side job for you. With the travel agencies, how does it operate normally? Is it usually like commission based or percentage based, or like companies like yours, when you advertise through an agency, how does the cost structure work? Do you pay them a
It's
little
normally,
like
it
percentage
is,
of the sale, or?
yeah, so it is normally a percentage of the sale. That is the most common case. So basically, you send a list of prices to the travel agency. This is my portfolio. This is what it costs, and then to you, I give you. Normally, it goes from 10% to 15%
Mhm.
commission on sales. That's the like standard of commissions in the market right now.
So they have an incentive to promote you, because if the client buys, they get a little commission. And for you, it's not a major investment up front. You only pay when the contract becomes a reality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be really interested if someone ends up being a representative. That would be awesome. Really good.
Tell us more about your pricing. So both how much those services cost, but also how does it compare to similar products in Colombia? Is it more expensive, high end, low end? And also, is it always a fixed price, or do you offer some special, I don't know, like group packages or repeat customer discounts or anything like that. So how do you charge for your business?
Okay, right now, my experiences, as most of them are half-day experiences, they are normally between 40 and 50 US dollars. They are right now, they are a bit over the standard prices of experiences, as they have a more like direct focus on sustainability and
Mhm.
reaching more interesting communities that can benefit from that. So it's definitely over the standard prices of normal experiences right now in the market. Um, and there's of course, a series of discounts for groups. As I normally work now, this is important for the students to know, is that I focus on little groups. I don't, this is not a company that
Right.
has a big bus full of people, but I normally work with a couple, three people, four people, very like private tours.
Right.
Um, yeah.
It's actually not too bad. I mean, that's a pretty good price. I mean, normally I usually get bus tours when I go to a city. I don't have much time. And if I want to do like half a day bus tour, and bus tours, first of all, there would be like 50 people. And second, you just go like landmark, take photos, next landmark. And usually, yeah, usually you pay at least $50, $60, and in many cases up to 100. And it's not very authentic. It just basically just, you know, they take you to the places where you take pictures. That's it. So
Okay.
that's not bad at all. So, yeah. Okay, so we got that. Is the coronavirus whole craze, is it affecting your business in any way? Do you see a drop in clients?
I haven't seen it yet, but the what they are saying, or at least officially, there's an association of travel agencies in Colombia and predicts a big drop in the coming months for tourism. Colombia doesn't have any restriction now on like receiving tourists, but there's a list of countries that are like suggested to uh, like holding like at least 14 days once they have arrived in Colombia.
Right, right, right.
So that makes for many travelers just impossible to come.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
So we'll be in the coming months. We will feel it. I'm sure, but right now I haven't felt like
Right.
as today. Mhm.
And Colombia, Latin America in general, it seems like at this time there are really no cases in your region. Or are there any people with the confirmed cases of coronavirus?
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, yeah. In Colombia, there's already around
Oh, there
14.
are.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
okay,
are.
okay. I didn't realize because it's everybody was talking about Asia, then Europe. So, okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go then back to the questions that you want the students to work on. And I will recite what we have in the challenge, but the big question I have for you is, so we will have, I don't know how many students will choose a company, but let's say there will be 500 students, 100 teams. And so they will spend the next 2 months trying to sort of help you. And so ultimately, we want to know what you want from them. So what would you like them to do so that these 2 months that they spend, a combined of, let's say, 2, 3, 4, 10,000 hours, whatever that will be. So we want that time to be useful for you. And so at this time, if I read the challenge correctly, so what you do is, what you ask them is, you know, you ask them to start with a competition analysis to understand the market, and then think from which countries or which markets people may be interested in going to Colombia and buying your services. And so here, that's more, I almost think that you kind of know much of that information. So it almost looks like that's something the students need to do for themselves to know and to be able to answer the subsequent questions. But it sounds again like your whatever markets they recommend, you are open to clients from anywhere. And then the question is for the students, can you describe those markets? Can you describe the customer preferences and tastes and culture? So I suppose that's pretty straightforward. And you know, we want to be informed, you want to be informed, so that's easy. But then when it gets to marketing, so here you ask, can you tell me how I can advertise in those markets, what my message should be, maybe give me some examples of promotional materials. So any special requests here? I mean, how exactly can they help here? So like if the students brought you some estimated pricing, you know, placing ads there, and here if they gave you some, you know, sample designs of brochures or leaflets that can be maybe given to the travel agencies, would that be useful to you?
I think more than like in terms of like pieces of design, would be super interesting to know exactly how the alliances in different countries, as I
Hmm.
know very well in Colombia how it works, but in many other countries it may change. How travel agencies make alliances
Okay.
with companies in a country like Colombia or South America. So, what would be the structured plan that I have to follow in order to approach these companies and to have like a successful alliance? That would be mostly the case. If there are other methods rather than this very traditional way to make alliances, I would be really interested to know. And also, in the case as knowing that my vast majority of clients come from the US, it would be really nice to find out if there is another way to boost that market and that target that I have from the US, if it's required to have a more like deep alliance with a special company in the US, of if there is a special state or area from the US that people are more willing to come to South America, and if it's worth like let's say having someone, or like you said, having a model commission based of someone that can promote and sell the services of Nomad, for example.
Yeah, that's a good point. Gina, I saw you had a question, and it's a fairly long one. If your microphone is working, do you want to go ahead and just ask it in your own language? I'm not sure. Gina, can you talk to us?
Uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead with your question. I just wanted to make sure it's better if you ask it yourself. Go ahead.
Just I'm somehow want to know like how, because for instance like in Europe or in Asia, the customer really care about the safety to travel to South America. So how your company to guarantee their safety, and how you choose your hosting, like a hosting family?
Okay, I think in order to like ensure security is to like go together with like policies that mainly like big institutions in Colombia ensure the safety of the travelers in the country, as well like trying to send a message on how safe like the trips are, right? And more than that, I think it's a bit hard. It's a really good question, in fact, to answer. And I think there's more to be worked on the message that Nomad sends, because I think company or people that are like deciding where to travel will mainly read news that come out from institutions, big institutions of Colombia. In terms of local host families, they go through a process of where I personally go and meet them, see what they do for work, if they have worked before with tourists, if they are willing to do it, why would they be interested on doing this, and then the travelers receive a profile of the family to see, or to kind of try to get to know them a little bit before, to see if there's like enough confidence that they transmit in order to be like I don't know, like happy to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Okay.
I will say, Gina, when I was going to Colombia the first time, I was a
Mm-hmm.
little worried because, again, in the news, at least, I growing up, you mainly hear about Colombia in the context of, some drugs and cartels and stuff. And I was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
surprised. Actually, the country is very safe. I mean, I was very surprised how comfortable I felt there. And I was in Medellin, which is what probably the second biggest city, right? So it's a big city. It's not a small town. And no, everything looked perfectly fine. I mean, sometimes even in New York, for example, or Chicago, you have to be sort of careful. But it didn't feel that much different, other than the weather is much better, and the nature is a little bit more exotic. And in Medellin, again, since I started talking about that experience, I remember that. So it's one of those places that may have the best weather on the planet. Like every single day, it's like 24, 25 Celsius, like 75 Fahrenheit, and it's the same every day. And so in the weather forecast, they don't even say what the temperature will be because everybody knows anyway. So they just say if it's going to rain or not. Plus they are kind of in this valley. And so if you feel a little too hot, you go a little bit up the mountain and it's like a little cooler. And if you want a little bit warmer, you go further down the valley. So you get like plus or minus a couple of degrees of temperature, but it's a very interesting place. And so, yeah. One question I have about the market, understanding the market and market survey. So would it be a good idea for the students to go and talk to potential maybe travel agency partners or maybe some tour agencies and ask them, would you be interested to, in working with a company like Nomad? And if so, what would be the conditions? How would the, partnership work? How do you normally work with operators? And then maybe also talk to friends and say, would you be interested in going to Colombia and booking a trip like that? And if so, how much would you be willing to pay? What needs to be in place for you to be comfortable to go there? So with a survey market research like this, do you think it may be useful for the students to better understand before they start making, providing ideas? And also if they presented the results of those surveys to you, do you think that would be something that would interest you?
For sure. I think it would be really useful to have direct information from other countries, especially like if they are willing to travel, and if they are, what would they look for once they arrive in Colombia? If they would like to book independently their hotel, their own activities, like not hiring a guide and do everything by themselves, or if they prefer to have a company that makes everything by them. That would be really interesting for me to know for sure.
Yeah. Another thing, I think we put it in the challenge there, but I think what students should also think about doing is maybe if they can have a section in the report with ideas, sort of tips, maybe, product features that you can add to your offering to make it more interesting for the clients. I don't know, maybe students traveled on a similar, trip somewhere else and there were some things that they particularly liked. Maybe there are some little, I don't know, signs of attention that you can include in your sort of program that will make the customers happy. So I thought it might be useful if they sort of included ideas, little tips, suggestions for how you can expand your products or maybe add little features that will make them more attractive to customers, maybe in general, or maybe even customers from a specific country. Like, who knows, maybe, I don't know, customers from Japan like this one particular little thing to be part of the trip. So, yeah, so I think that might want to, anyway.
Yeah,
a couple of questions also for you about starting a business. So many students obviously want to start their own business and they basically would like to be in a few years where you are now. So looking back, do you ever regret that you started your own business instead of looking for an 8-to-5 job? Also looking back, if you could go back in time, would you do anything differently? Did you make any mistakes? Do you have any tips for students who are about to start a business? What would you tell them?
Well, my advice is to take the risk and start the business for sure. I don't think I regret on starting it, neither on doing things. Like, I think there's mistakes every day made, and it's out of them that you learn. It's like something that everybody says, but once you start your own company, you realize it's like that. And it's definitely worth it. It is definitely also hard at the beginning, but it's a very fulfilling and satisfying job. I mean, you're working for your own purposes, and especially like in my case, try to find exactly what you would like to do every day, right? I after 2 years, almost, I enjoy the same, and sometimes even more the every day that I walk on a tour and I meet people. So basically, find exactly something that you would like try to relate on your personal interests, and that if you do that more, will that make you happy? And basically, it has brought very good results for my satisfaction on my job. That's it.
So you're not planning to go and get a corporate job one day and work for somebody else?
Not at this point. I think I have a lot of like expectations and a long-term plan for Nomad. So I'll keep on this.
And so what is the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur running your own business?
I think I found the biggest challenge is to manage my time. It's definitely a big thing. I mean, you come from school, your university, where you're exactly told what to do and when to deliver, right? And then once you have your own company, like you can just, you know, do whatever you want. So at the end, you can plan, but it's hard to like, you know, be disciplined enough to say, okay, I plan to have this, like say, let's say strategy design for the last day of the month. So I'll have it. I think that's a big challenge. Learn to manage your own time and like to like actually do the tasks that you planned.
Okay, fair enough. There is another question asked anonymously, so I'm not sure which of the students asked it, and you don't have to answer it, but since the student asked, I'll ask, are you married? So somebody wants to know that.
I'm not.
Okay.
I am 24 now.
Okay,
I'm very
all right.
young.
So we got the answer. So it's not about business, but somebody was asking, so I had to relay it.
Okay.
All right, so I think we've covered pretty much all of the parts of the challenge. So as always, there will be probably some questions once the students start working on the challenge. And if so, I will forward them to you. Normally what we try to do is to kind of shield your time, shield you from too many questions. If the question had been asked before and we know the answer from your previous answer, we just copy and paste that so we don't bother you. But occasionally we get new questions that we don't know the answer to. So in that case, we'll just forward it to you and ask you to give more information.
Yeah, no problem at all.
And then we will see how things go. The students have 2 months to develop the solutions to your challenge. And there will be probably some questions in the beginning, but probably more towards the end. And then I guess we will go have the reports ready for you in early May. There is one more question came from Victoria. I'm wondering why Brazil is not on the markets you mainly want to advertise to. And I would like to say that it's really nice that you are interested in developing communities in Colombia in a sustainable way. So the second one is more a compliment. Thank you. And the first one, so Brazil is not on your list?
Well, right now, it's like I have these two specific countries that I like, mainly Peru and Ecuador, mainly because of the route that I've seen that many people follow. When they come to Colombia, they have normally been from south to north, but I don't, how do I say this? Like Brazil is not in these two specific countries that I listed, but not out of it, right? Brazil is a big market. It would be definitely a very interesting market to work with. I just have no experience before with it, but it would be really nice to have it as well.
Does it matter at all, the language difference? So pretty much all of the other countries in South America, they speak Spanish, even though there are some different slight accents, but obviously it's the same language. Brazil uses Portuguese. I assume most people can speak English these days, but does that make Brazil less interesting to you because the official language is different, or you can easily communicate with one another despite those differences?
No, well, in my case, now I do many tours myself as a guide, and I offer them in Portuguese as I studied Portuguese in university.
So you,
yeah, and I don't feel like it's a big, how can I say this? Like a big barrier. I feel like I've dealt with many Brazilians that have no really a big barrier on like try to make them understand like in like Portuñol, right?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Gina is also asking, how about China? Are you interested? Have you had any clients from China? Are you interested in growing your business from China?
I've had people with Chinese origins, but not exactly that live in China. It would be really interesting to work with that market, as they have, when I attend to official conferences on pronostics of the market and tourism in Colombia, they always talk about China as a big country that is looking to start traveling more to Colombia specifically. So it'd be really interesting if there's a student that has origins in there, that has access maybe to contact some companies from there, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe Gina has more information. What I can say, I travel a lot, and I remember even 10, 15 years ago, most of the tourists would be, like distant countries would be primarily from Japan, and now it's mainly Chinese. So Chinese, the economy is growing, people have more money, they travel more, and so it seems like that's probably the fastest growing segment of tourists essentially. And I mean, obviously Americans, Europeans, I mean, they always are on the list, but the Chinese are now, becoming a major slice of the market. And so obviously if you can get, take root in that market, that would be definitely a nice supply of, of people who might be interested in visiting Colombia.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are right out of time. We try to keep it to about 45 minutes, and so we're right on the mark. And thank you so much for your information, for your time. And yeah, let's hope that the students will bring you lots of interesting ideas and business leads.
Yeah, thank you very much for the time again. And I encourage all the students that may watch this webinar to like connect with me on the idea of developing a very sustainable and tourism that can actually bring progress to a country as Colombia.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Andres. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.